significant number are the same people, which is outstanding. Where I find the same person, I try as best as possible to give them that same position. And certainly to the officer in charge, the OIC at every stage, very critical individual, I try as best I can to get those same people again. Our race timing, 5,000 split times on this race. Of the 5,000 split times possible, the timing company did not miss a one. Both times them and takes your pictures. And as I told Dan Whitten, that runs this operation, I said, the picture of me is useless. I have that same ugly picture of me every time. Take it off. I don't want to see it. Time, fine, but take the picture off. So we're going to use him again, and the system works fine. Our online registration, long ways away from what you have to do right now, but that functioned very well. We brought out ice and water last year for the first 3 miles of the race course. And that works if you stop and drink the water. If you just run by and don't stop, don't drink the water provided for you in those first 3 miles, then shame on you. You suffer. Stage 16, top of Mountain Springs Pass. The officer involved there, officer in charge, was from Nye County Sheriff's. Did a great job, brought out a lot of his own equipment. I'm hopeful I can get him back again. I spoke to an individual that drives from Pahrump to Las Vegas every day, and the road work is still in construction as they approach the top of Mountain Springs Pass. So right now there is a stretch of at least a mile and a half that's narrowed down to 2 lanes, K-rail in the middle, K-rail on both sides, and they try to funnel everybody through that little narrow pass as they're moving their construction up there. I'm hopeful that at least majority of it will be done before our race of next year. We'll see. I've had one request so far for the use of the trademark. That is the Baker to Vegas trademark for next year. If you choose or want to use the word Baker to Vegas, the Snake, Challenge Cup Relay, something of this sort in your own personal team logo, perfectly acceptable, as long as it's only for your team use. You're not out trying to sell on the street corner to make $1 million out of this. As long as that's not the case, send a copy of what your artwork is proposed. On the website is a request form to use the logo. It will go to the general manager. He'll take a look at it. If he has questions, he'll call you. If he has no questions, he's going to send you back an email saying this is approved, go ahead. But be sure you get approval. In talking to one of the new team captains about categories, I said, well, that's not a necessary thing to do right now. You do not have to tell me what category you're going to run in. But the planning of the race starts months ago with fundraising, if you were doing that. But it starts right now with what's your goal? What is your goal? Yesterday I was talking to a team that had not submitted their entry form. A very, very good highway patrol team from Central California. And what he told me is he's worn out. He's trying to find somebody new. They finished in 13th place last year. That's an outstanding position to be in, to be 13th. And having moved up from, the mid-80s up to 13th place in a matter of 6 years. And he said he's worn out because he fundraises, trains, does everything, a one-man show. I said, yeah, a burnout factor can get you. What is your goal? Is your goal to be in the top 20? How many here have a goal just to get a mug? Okay, and if you haven't gotten a mug before, that's something to go for. I understand that. If your goal is just to finish, if your goal is to be number one in your category, it has to be realistic. And you've got to have the ability to go back to your group of people and say, what's realistic here? What's possible for us? Once you take a look at that and you start to get an idea of who are your 20 runners, I'm sure you do not know right now who those 20 runners are. Once you get an idea of who those runners are, then you'll know what category is best for you. Putting those two things together will give you your category choice. In the meantime, you're not only going to have to find out and make that decision, but you're also going to have to determine who is your support team. When the question is asked to me, how many people does it take to support 20 runners? I said it takes 20 support. It's a one-for-one situation. So you're going to have at least, my estimation, 20 support staff. Drivers, support people, fundraising individuals, all kinds of folks that it takes to make a team work. So when you're starting now to gather who is your support team, who's your co-captain, all of those critical factors involved. Money, a very important factor. This is a fundraising operation right behind me from National Life Group that has assisted several teams now in fundraising. And they can do more. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, they can do more for you. So I would encourage you, come up and talk to them. Find out what's possible for you. Unless you're so well off that you only have to go to one sponsor, pick up a check for $10,000, and everything's taken care of. If you're that fortunate, one or two or three, well, good for you. Otherwise, you're going to be standing out in front of your station selling blueberry muffins for $10, trying to raise money to get this race going. And you look rather silly. But effective, if you want to do that, it sometimes works. Training, something near and dear to my heart. Talking to an individual this morning about his daughter that runs cross country for a team out in Orange County, and we were talking about running. I could talk running all day long and training people all day long. But these are two very difficult things to do. To take people who are sedentary, don't do a lot of running, and make them a runner. Very tough situation. Possible if you take your time, if you address them individually, work out all of their difficulties in trying to train. I spoke to the LAPD women's team, maybe a month ago or so, and I asked the general question out of the 25 or 30 runners standing there. I said, how many of you run every single day? How many of you in this room run every day? None? Nobody? Just me? The only crazy person here? I run every day. Yeah, there's a day or two a week, once in a while, that pops up that I can't run, but I try to run every day. I asked them that same question, and only a handful there tried to say they ran every day. And I said, well, do you run 5 days a week? You get a few more hands. How many only run 3 days a week? Several. I said, you're going to try to be competitive and only run 3 days a week. Not possible. Not possible. I've been in this running business 50 years. I've seen thousands of runners. What you're telling me is not possible if you want to be competitive. If you don't want to be competitive, don't run at all. Don't run a day. You can walk out there and waddle your way through 5 miles. Take you forever. But you don't have to train. So your question to yourself is, what is your goal? If your goal is to be competitive, you're trying to win a mug, now you have to actually work out. You have to find the running shoes buried somewhere in the closet. You've got to dust them off, and you've got to start to run. So training is important. If you have general questions about this, email me. Certainly love to help you. I can't come wherever you are and train your runners for you. But believe me, there are people out there willing to help you. Most every track coach, every running coach, and every community out there, if you just walk in and say, this is what I want to do, would you help? I'm sure they probably will do that. Keeping others informed, very important. You're about to get onto the business, and several here have paid. I think probably by the end of the day, about 150 teams will have paid their entry fee, which means you've come up with $2,100. That's the entry fee. But that's only a portion of what this costs. A minimum, I would guess, at about $5,000 a team, to as much as $10,000 or $12,000, depending on how sophisticated are you. Do you come out there looking like a team, everybody in uniform? As I watched the teams come up on the stage last year at the award ceremony, many came up in perfectly matched uniforms. That would have cost somebody a lot of money. Others come up 20 ragamuffins, whatever they had on at the time. And that's their uniform. Okay, I understand that. You don't have the money for it. Okay. But if you're going to get out and hustle like that, you're going to be in the business of knocking on doors and asking for money. If you're going to do that, as many of you will have to, then you need to keep your direct supervision informed. What are you doing? Chief of police, commanders, whomever you have above you, you need to keep them informed. This is what you're doing, how you're doing it, where is the money going, who signs the checks, where is all of the backup material that says what you did, where's all the expenses. Have that so that there's no question about what you're doing. Again, the rule book is posted and is on right now. Cutoff for new employees, brand new hired officers. January the 1st, 2017. Have you hired that person by January the 1st, 2017? Hired means gone into their academy. Now, LAPD in the past, now whether they do that now or no, I'm not sure, has taken recruits in the academy, exercise, all brand new, pretty good shape, and used them as runners on their team. I've talked to other departments who say, no, we don't take anybody out of the academy. We don't take anybody on probation. The San Diego Sheriff's Department that had an excellent team said, no, we can't use that woman right there because she's still on probation. That's your choice. Our rules are January the 1st, 2017. Has that person been hired? For LAPD personnel, and I didn't realize until I looked into this, that there is a deployment period 14. News to me. I didn't think there were 14 deployment periods in a year. It must be leap year or something. But anyway, that date is Christmas, December 25th, 2016. Deployment period 14. Where are you located on that deployment period? We have a little time between now and then. People can transfer, promote, leave a station, go somewhere else. That go somewhere else has a team, they're running for that team. So the question for LAPD is, where are you on deployment period 14? Where you appear on that is the team that you run for. If you leave that division, station, team after that point, you're still attached to them and you'll run for them. If you leave a station that no longer that has a team, but you've gone somewhere else, and the somewhere else does not have a team, you can revert back to your previous team, but only if that particular team captain wants to use you. It matters when it comes to certain categories that we keep as squared away as possible. The station category. The station category is going to be who is in that station on deployment period 14. Not who leaves there, but who's there then and there. That's the team. Invitational category teams must again this year have at least two non-sworn runners. Not drivers of vehicles, but actual people that run. If you start a run, you must finish the run. If you have only two individuals on your team that are non-sworn and you're in an invitational category, those people must finish. Or who takes their place must be non-sworn. Same is true in the mixed category. That requires 5 women to complete 5 stages of the race. So again, if you've gone into the race with exactly 5 and no alternate women, then those 5 have to finish. They start a stage, they must finish the stage. I listened to the officers in charge of location stages and their recommendation. This is a recommendation and a change. Team catchers in the past of the last stage, the finish line, were not necessary. But I listened to the coordinator there, and he tells me that quite often a person would come in to finish, and while there might be cheers, that individual just kind of wanders off without any real assistance. So I said, okay, we'll go back to every single team must have a catcher at every single stage, including the finish line. So plan on it now that you will need a catcher at the finish line. You won't have a lot of time to come out there and locate that individual because we don't have the early warning tuned into the finish line. And we'll work on that. But right now, plan on having a catcher at the finish line. We will use again our start times as we did last year. Start at 0900 with our slowest teams. Start at 1600 with our fastest teams. And then everything in between on the hour. 9 start times that begin at 0900 and go all the way to 1600. No, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, no. 0900. No, 8. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You are correct. 0800. 0800 to 1600. I'm looking right at my notes and didn't see it. Thank you for mentioning that. So no 0900. 0800, 8 o'clock, which pushes all of our volunteers out on the race course earlier. Tougher for them, but brings us to the finish line earlier, gets us to the award ceremony earlier. That's the whole point of all this. So again, 0800, 1600, and on the hour. Back to the volunteer officers that you're going to submit to me again. And just for a bit of cleanup, to the 6 to 10 teams in here that try to use an individual already coming to the race course. I will look through your information, locate you, and let you know. Must find a different volunteer. Do not give me somebody that's already coming to the race course. Margie Hoffman is coming to the race course already. She's in charge of our communications ham personnel. Do not submit her name to me. If you were attached to Van Nuys division or some other division, I would say, no, you can't use that individual. Find somebody else. That affects about, again, 6 to 10 teams that over the years have used that same individual. And I keep reminding myself, this person's already coming to the race. Why are you giving me a volunteer that's already coming to the race? I can't use that individual in 2 different jobs. Trash. Sounds funny to talk about trash out there in the desert, but much better last year. I actually issued and gave every one of those volunteer officers out there a pair of gloves and said, police the area, pick up all the trash. Put it in a bag, put it inside the porta potties, so the animals and the birds don't get at it the next morning, and we'll be better shape out there. That worked great. We'll repeat that again. Blew past something I wanted to mention. This is, what year is this, 16? This is 46 years on the police department for me. Between Baker to Vegas, coming on as a cop, 46 years. There's tough times. To be an officer today, I'll tell you, it would be tough for me to sort of adapt to all of what you have to go through. Today is the funeral for Sergeant Owens out in Lancaster. And Temple Station, oh, I'm sorry, tomorrow. Oh, I thought it was today. Temple Station today is putting on a fundraiser for that sergeant. This is at Temple Station. If you got time to swing by there on your way home, do so. Their address is 8838 Las Tunas in the city of Temple City. The phone number is 626-285-7171. Palm Springs that ran in the race last year for the very first time. Was Palm Springs here? Ran in the race for the very first time. Palm Springs PD is not a very big police department. And to suffer two officers getting killed in line of duty like that is just incredible. Just incredible times. In the minutes will be a better description for you of all the category choices. Take a look at those. You have time to, again, weed through your runners, determine who is going to run, what's your best chance. People study the statistics and go back over all of last year's information to see where is there an opportunity here to win a category, do well in a category, if they simply change a little bit of who their runners are. Sometimes you have a little leeway there. Other times you really don't. But take a look at the categories. If you have questions about those, please get a hold of me. I'll explain it better to you or send it off to the Rules Committee to make a determination. The running baton and the decal that goes on that baton. It's not too early for those that have had that kind of a tragedy occur to get me a photograph of that individual. And what I'm looking for here is the best photograph you can of that individual, torso up, and I'll put that onto the bib number that you use. The name of the individual will go on the baton. All of this we're trying to do to supply information out to all of the people that are involved in our race that we run for lots of reasons, and this happens to be one of those reasons. So we'll do that again this year for those in the watch officers that have died since the last year's race. And certainly for Dallas, to have 5 officers killed, one situation, it's tough to come back up off that. So we'll again try to do all that we can on our end of things to commemorate this situation. Retired personnel, like myself, eligible to run. So if you've had somebody retire from your station, your division, and they're still interested in running, they're eligible to run. Your choice. On November 30th, the very next team captains meeting will be a communications seminar. How to put a communications package together for you. So Jeff Lee and a handful of his assistants will put together that program. I'll get this out to you. 0900 to the start of the meeting at 11:30. So 2.5 hours, he'll give you the best explanation possible about what works out there and what absolutely will not work. Jeff Lee coordinates about 250 communications frequencies, all in the effort to make sure that what you want to use will work, that you're not stepping on somebody else, and to try to keep this coordinated so that we don't interfere with other people out there who actually will be working and we don't interfere with their frequencies. The mug series. Does anyone here have information on the LA Sheriff's Mug Series? No? Not yet? Okay, well, I'll get together with Dan Witten. He usually is on top of what those dates are. All of those stations put together Mug Series runs. And it's a great effort. It's a great job of 10K and 5K and an opportunity for you to informally take out people and run them. And believe you me, the only way to determine somebody's ability is to run them. You've gone down to the track at Santa Anita and looked at horses. Anybody here a big horse fan? No one bets on horses here? Go down there. Watch all those railbirds, and they look at those horses, and they try to determine, is that horse going to win? Well, it's got 4 legs, a tail, and a head. How do you know? You don't know by just looking at the horse whether it's, a winner or a pokey one ready for the glue factory. You don't know. You don't know about runners until you actually run them. So these kind of efforts of races locally give you a chance to see that person who said all about, hey, I can run, I can run, I can run. Okay? Let's see. And they get out there and they run a blazing 45-minute 5K. And you go, wow, that's really fast. 15 minutes a mile. You really set the world on fire there. Then you're really going to know what the truth is. Because if you just take somebody's word for it, and that's all you take, then you're going to be very disappointed. The surprises are very few. The disappointments are many. Run the folks as many times as you can. Some of you know Jeff Sherpy. Jeff Sherpy is an LA sheriff, nice guy, good runner. Sent me a very long message and said, I've studied this and I think this is a good suggestion. Take stage 14, 10.7 miles, divide it in half, do this, do this, do this. And I think you'll find it better. And I said, nah, Jeff, I'm sorry. What you're suggesting I've looked at before and it won't work. I said, every team puts out a 10.7 mile runner. Look at the stats on stage 14. And many of you have found an excellent runner, not just a good one, but an excellent. And then the term average to good, there's many of them out there. Sure, there's some slow ones. There's some good-hearted volunteers that say, I'll gut this out no matter how long it takes. And it sometimes takes 2 hours. And they are gutting it out. But everyone got done and there were no injuries on stage 14. But you still have to find somebody that can run 10.7 miles. And if you're trying to be competitive, you got to start shopping right now. Who is your marathoner? Who is your half marathoner? Or start training somebody. So training runs are important to do. Now I've taken us right to 12:50. I try to keep these meetings to an hour or just a little less. If you have questions, now's the time to fire one off. Anybody have questions?
Do you have B2V merchandise in the store like there used to be downstairs?
Right now, Baker to Vegas merchandise leftover from last year is right there, right behind me, and on sale. And the best attempt possible to come up with what the general manager, the clothing manager feels will work for the following year. They try to design and make it work the best as possible. I stay for the most part out of all of that, but yes, we do have it. Any other questions?
And for the invitational category, do reserves fall under sworn or civilian?
Good question. Do reserves in the invitational category count as sworn or as non-sworn? For our purposes, they are non-sworn. The sworn category races are set aside for you as a working 8-hour, 12-hour, whatever it is you have in your circumstance, everyday kind of cop. That's what we're looking for here. So other than that, no. In this case, they're non-sworn. If you retire, we have this, retire, come back on the department as a reserve officer, we still count you as sworn. If you have that one-of-a-kind kind of person that retires as an officer, goes back on the police department to work as a reserve, you are a sworn officer. Any other questions? Just like church, no questions, huh?
How about retired civilian personnel? That help work?
Retired civilian personnel, you are non-sworn. And I get occasionally a question that pops up that says somebody left as a civilian but did not retire. And unfortunately, when you leave a department as a civilian but you do not retire, then you've gone. You have to retire from a department to be eligible to run in this race, or be working, one or the other. Full-time employee or retired. Any other questions? Yeah.
How do we figure out what our start time's going to be for the team?
Start times are predicated on your ability. Eventually, down the line here, I will ask you for your estimated time. And at a meeting or two from now, I will go back over the report of last year's estimated times. How good did you do? And many of them do excellent. And a lot of them do average. And there's always somebody that does terrible. So your estimated time is going to determine when you start, along with what category are you running in. I try to match up like ability, like category, and put you at the starting time together. But if you're extremely good, you run 14 hours, you're starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry. Oh, get that time wrong. Really, have you you'd have to be at the finish line at about 11 o'clock at night when we're not ready. No. You'd be starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, last start time, if you were a 14-hour team. If you're a 20-hour team, you are starting at 8 o'clock. Slowest teams first, fastest teams last. Try to meet in the middle when we get done. But that's how it's determined. Ability, category. Any more questions? No more questions. Okay. Well, then, if that's the case, the meeting is concluded. We will see you at the next one, 30th of November. Good luck.